Well, hello everyone. My name is Baha. I was born and raised in the town of Bethlehem some 40 years ago. I have a degree in sociology and political science, and for the past 16 years, I've been working on education on Palestine through different initiatives. For the past 6 years, I've been working on that form of education through a small initiative called To Be There, because simply it's difficult for people to understand what's happening in Palestine. So to understand that you have to be there. And to be there, we have different programs. Like we invite people to take part in the tree planting, in the olive harvest, on the land day event in this Palestinian culture, as well as like visit Palestine during Christmas. So for the past 6 years, we've been doing Christmas in Palestine program where we invite people to come to Bethlehem and see and experience how we in Bethlehem celebrate Christmas. Now, because of COVID-19 and the crisis around it and the restrictions of movement and travel, instead of having people to come over, we're trying to bring Bethlehem to people around the world, and we hope we will succeed in doing so. So the Church of the Nativity is believed to be built upon the birthplace of Jesus Christ. It was built first in the 4th century, around 325, and then it survived like the destruction that was carried out by the Samaritans around the 4th century, and rebuilt again around the 6th century, and has been standing ever since as a church. The church today is looked after by 3 different Christian denominations: the Catholic side and the Greek Orthodox side, as well as the Armenian side, and it continues to be like the main attraction of the city of Bethlehem. It's one of about 14 churches we have around town, and all of which continue to be like vibrant and continue to be part of the identity of the city of Bethlehem. One of the most fascinating things about the Church of the Nativity is the entrance to it. Of course, like the entrance is very, very small, and it's called the Gate of Humility. And it stands as a constant reminder of one inspiring thing that Christ have said, which is like it's easier for the camel to go through an eye of a needle than for a rich man to go into the kingdom of God. And that's something that we are constantly reminded of in order to continue to be humble and to have some humility in our relation to one another here in Bethlehem. So the Church of the Nativity is in the Manger Square, and we have the church on one side, and then we have the Mosque of Omar on the other side of the square. The Mosque of Omar is also one of the oldest mosques we have in Bethlehem. It has been around since mid-18th century, and it underwent like expansions in the year 1954. The reason for that is pretty simple. Like if you came to Bethlehem in the year 1946, let's say, you would find out that we have 1,800 people living in this town. Up to 80+% of that population were born to Christian families. When you come to Bethlehem in 1954, let's say, or 1952, you'll find that the majority of the population that lived in Bethlehem were Palestinian refugees. Bethlehem had to go through another miracle in the 20th century, besides the miracle of the virgin birth, which is a social economic miracle in which it had to provide shelter and safety and a place for Palestinian refugees that were expelled from more than 60 communities around Bethlehem to the west of the town. Those Palestinian refugees were expelled as the State of Israel was being founded by 70,000 militants that committed atrocities, pushed people away, and many of those people ended up in the town of Bethlehem. So if you are in Bethlehem and you were born to a Muslim family, you are more likely to be a Palestinian refugee that was expelled from a nearby community, and your family was never allowed back to that community because of the State of Israel. And many of the Palestinian refugees that ended up in Bethlehem in the 50s, 60s, and so on tried to go back to their communities, but then were either murdered or arrested or deported to a different place by the State of Israel. The town of Bethlehem has 8 quarters, one where the Church of the Nativity is located, and the other 7 are residential. One of the 7 is where Muslim families from Bethlehem live, and the 6 others are where those who were born to Christian families live. So we have 8 quarters altogether. Those 8 quarters are connected together and also connected to the heart of the city, which is the manger square and the Church of the Nativity. So we're talking about quarters that are 200, 300, 400, and sometimes like 700 years old quarters. The city is full of old stones and full of stories. Like almost every family can trace itself back to like few generations because they continue to live at the exact same place where their family started here in Bethlehem. The city of Bethlehem is the central city for the Bethlehem district, which is a district that includes 73 communities, villages, towns, and refugees camps. The district is about 605 square kilometers, and the Palestinian population that lives in the district is around 220,000. The city of Bethlehem itself is only 10 square kilometers of the entire district and is home for 35,000 Palestinians today. So one of the main things that the State of Israel is doing here in Bethlehem is what they are doing all over Palestine, which is land confiscation and colonization. In Bethlehem area, the State of Israel have confiscated property from the local residents of the town and ended up constructing 2 Jewish-only colonies on top of them, one of which is Har Homa, or the Abu Ghnaim colony, which was constructed by the State of Israel on the land of residents of Bethlehem starting from the year 1996. The number of Jewish Israeli settlers that live in different colonies in the Bethlehem district exceeds 140,000 people. Like the most famous Jewish Israeli settler that lives in the district of Bethlehem is a member of the Israeli parliament who served as a minister of foreign affairs and a minister of defense, and is known by the name Avigdor Lieberman, who lives also in one of the colonies that the State of Israel established around us in the district of Bethlehem. So the contrast between Palestinian communities and Jewish-only colonies that are established by the State of Israel in Palestine are easy to spot. For example, Palestinians build privately. This is why, like, when you look at a community and you see different houses, you know that that community is Palestinian. When you look at a community and you see that houses are identical, then you are probably looking at a Jewish-Israeli colony. The second difference, or the second contrast, is the rooftops. While on Palestinian rooftops you find water containers and water tanks, on the rooftops of any Israeli colony you don't find that on the rooftop for a different reason. A Jewish Israeli settler is allowed access to water 24/7, while Palestinians are allowed an average of 10 hours of running water every week. So when the water comes from the main supply, we have to store it in our rooftops and use it domestically throughout the week. So as history shows, like the town of Bethlehem was established by the Canaanites about 4,000 years ago. And the Canaanites did that because they needed a station between 2 very vibrant cities. One is Jerusalem in the north, and the second one is Hebron in the south. So the main highways, or the main roads in Bethlehem, continue to be the routes that existed in Bethlehem for nearly 4,000 years. Like the route over there is still called the Major Street, because it's believed that when Joseph, Mary, and the donkey came towards Bethlehem, they came to Bethlehem through that route. The older route in the town of Bethlehem is the Hebron road, or the Abrahamic road, because it's believed that when Abraham came from Ur in Iraq, he stayed in Jerusalem and went south to Hebron through Bethlehem on that route. Both roads continue to function up until today, which is like really fascinating when you think of like people going the same way for nearly 4,000 years. The most vibrant part of the town of Bethlehem, besides the Church of the Nativity, is this location where the towns of Bethlehem, Hebron, and Jerusalem meet. On this junction, there has been always constant movement for anybody who wants anything to do, whether in Jerusalem, Bethlehem, or in Hebron. It used to be a very vibrant place. Maybe the only standing evidence for how vibrant this place used to be, or this junction used to be, is having not one but two gas stations that would supply all the cars with the fuel they need in order to continue towards Bethlehem or towards Hebron or towards Jerusalem. After the year 2000, the State of Israel decided to further destroy the town of Bethlehem by building a high concrete wall on the northern outskirts of the city, cutting Bethlehem from Bethlehem, also cutting Bethlehem from its neighboring town of Jerusalem. To understand this in a historic context, we have two major figures that we continue to celebrate in Bethlehem. Jesus Christ as one, and the second one, of course, is the first famous man that was born in Bethlehem, which is King David. You know, that teenager who threw 5 stones at his oppressor and became a king afterwards. So both lives of King David and Jesus Christ started on earth in the town of Bethlehem, ended on earth in the town of Jerusalem. So the two cities have been interconnected for nearly 4,000 years until the State of Israel came along and decided to separate them completely. And with this separation, bringing in some form of destruction on the lives and livelihood of the Bethlehem town and the residents of the Bethlehem city. The negative and destructive impact of the State of Israel on the town of Bethlehem did not start overnight. It was a continuous process that was going on for nearly 50 years. In the very beginning, when the Israeli army took over Bethlehem, they decided that there was a shrine built on a Muslim cemetery about 300 years ago to honor the death of Rachel, the wife of Jacob, and the mother of Joseph and Benjamin. And the Israelis, of course, took that as an entrance towards the city. And that shrine is located between Bethlehem and Jerusalem. So, first of all, the Israelis took over the shrine, banned Muslim worshipping from taking place there, and turned it into a Jewish place of worship. And in order to further the destruction, they decided to build a military camp around the shrine. And then later on, they came in with a plan of building a wall around the shrine, and that wall is used to separate Bethlehem from nearly 46% of the property of the residents of Bethlehem. So behind the wall, there is still property of Palestinian residents of the town of Bethlehem. They have been denied freedom of access to it. The wall in Bethlehem, of course, is pretty high. The Israeli concrete wall is usually between 6 meters and 12 meters. But here in Bethlehem, we have an 11 meters high wall with 2 fences on top of it. Of course, the Israeli concrete wall includes watchtowers for Israeli snipers to look into Palestinian communities. And from those watchtowers, many Palestinians were murdered. Behind the gate behind me, there is an Israeli military camp. Usually Palestinians in Bethlehem who want to protest against the criminal behavior of the State of Israel towards Palestinians would come to this place demanding what oppressed people usually demand, which is freedom from occupation, freedom from oppression, and so on and so forth. When those protests take place on this spot, the Israeli army comes from inside the military camp, and the soldiers will station themselves behind different concretes that the State of Israel installed here, and then start shooting down and hunting down protesters. And this is how usually it's showed in the media. The cameras will be looking from behind the Israeli soldiers, showing angry, mindless Palestinians on the other side throwing rocks for no reason but to annoy Israeli soldiers. While in fact, we don't have Palestinians who go to the State of Israel. We have the State of Israel following us wherever we go. Just like the rest of the area of the West Bank, the city of Bethlehem is divided into areas A and area C. Area A is where Palestinian authorities are allowed to provide civil services for the Palestinian residents who live there, and also is allowed to have a police force in uniform. Area C is under direct Israeli military control, and the Palestinian Authority is not allowed to provide any kind of services for Palestinians or even have access to the land in Area C. The city of Bethlehem is divided also into areas A and C. Area A under Palestinian Authority rule, and on top of that rule we have Israeli military rule, and then Area C has Israeli military rule but no Palestinian Authority rule. It's pretty much like confusing reality that was imposed on Palestinians in the so-called peace process, where Palestinians believed that areas A, B, and C will end up being the state of Palestine, and the Israeli government believed that area A is Palestine, area C is for the state of Israel and is de facto annexed. So how can you recognize the fragmentation of the West Bank between area A, B, C, Jerusalem, Hebron 1, Hebron 2, and so on? Like all those areas of administration are designed by the Israeli army. So to know area A and area C in Bethlehem, you have to keep your eye on the road. And if you see cement blocks like those ones, then you are on the border between area A and C. So right now I am on the border between area A and area C in Bethlehem. If I take a bunch of steps back, now I'm under Palestinian Authority rule. And then if I walk a little bit further, then over here I am under Israeli military rule. Even though the state of Israel built a wall on nearly 2/3 of the highway, but for all of us this continues to be like the highway, and you always have like cars coming on what became a very, very little alley. Don't forget that the Israeli wall in Bethlehem is a big space, gray and ugly, and continues to be a symbol of Israeli oppression. And this way, like, you would find like many artists from around the world who would come and express themselves through artwork on it. It's still like not the biggest problem, but the problem with the art on the wall is that it takes the conversation far away from the fact that this wall is illegal. It has to be dismantled, and families that sustain losses because of it must be compensated. And that's not my opinion, nor the opinion of any Palestinian. That's the opinion of the International Court of Justice. For those of you who want to visit Bethlehem, you all know that you have to get an Israeli state approval to come and visit, simply because the state of Israel controls all the borders of Palestine, whether it's land, sea, or by air. And of course, like when you come in, you have to deny the fact that you are coming to visit us, simply because if you say that you want to come visit us, you will receive, denial on arrival. Let's say you came through the airport security checkings, and you passed it through. How would you come to Bethlehem? You will come to Bethlehem through this gate behind me, which is the only way left for people from around the world to come and visit us in Bethlehem. The gate is open and closed whenever the state of Israel sees fit. For the Palestinians who live south of this point, or south of this gate, or south of this checkpoint, there's no way for them to drive through. So this gate is literally not for the Palestinian residents of Bethlehem to drive towards Jerusalem, simply because Palestinians of the West Bank are denied freedom of driving towards Jerusalem. How can the State of Israel know which driver to allow and which driver to ban? The State of Israel made it very easy, which is on car plates. Like Palestinian residents of the West Bank, they drive vehicles that have Palestinian Authority registrations, and it is green numbers on white plate. While for the State of Israel, it's a yellow plate with black numbers on it. So when the soldier sees the vehicle approaching, if it has the correct color, it will pass. If it has the wrong color, it will not be allowed passage. After a few thousand years, like Bethlehem has become more like a caged community or an open-air prison. And that's due to the different Israeli policies, where the State of Israel ended up like surrounding us by walls, surrounding us by colonies, controlling the water resources that we drink, controlling our movement, and most importantly, managing to separate Bethlehem completely from Jerusalem. We are talking about two towns that are 10 minutes to drive apart. And regardless of all Israeli measures, like life continues to be vibrant in the town of Bethlehem, the same way it has been for the past 4,000 years. Yes, Israeli measures are imposing restrictions on the Palestinian population that lives in town, but doesn't impose restrictions on people who come to visit us. We receive like millions of pilgrims every single year that come to visit us through Israeli tour companies and through Israeli tourism industry, and none of those people are even allowed to learn about the reality that is imposed on the Palestinian population in Bethlehem, let alone throughout Palestine. So yes, aim to be there. We usually use Bethlehem as an example of an Israeli-controlled area, but like life among us will give you an understanding on how to survive oppression, racism, and apartheid. With this, I want to extend my thanks to Eyewitness, and I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas from the heart of the town of Bethlehem.